Pixie Jenkins, welcome to Over the Bonnet.
Mark, thanks for having us, mate. Really appreciate it, Mr. Piepers.
You're off to the Winton Festival. Tell us, what can crowds expect?
Well, it's the Way Out West Festival, of course. Anybody that's way out west, they'll fit in there, like some of us. It's just a weekend of really good Australian music and culture, really, in the heart of what what some of us believe is the heart and soul of Australian culture out there at Winton. Yeah,
it's interesting that it's so far out west. You guys have got to do a lot of travelling. Does that take away from it, or does that add to it?
We love it. Anybody who's anybody as an entertainer in Australia, we know about the tyranny of distance. Thank you, Ian Idris. We of the Never Never. Anybody who's anybody in Australian entertainment knows about the tyranny of distance in Australia. The years, the amount of travel that we have to do, millions of miles.
What's the first thing you do when you turn up at Winton?
Oh, mate. I mean, apart from go to the motel and check out my room, or wherever I'm staying. Apart from that, probably grab a cup of tea downtown somewhere. I do a trip up and down the main street just to see what's happening. I check out the venue if it's open. If there's the sound guys, go and talk to them. But generally, it's just that. There's nothing much to do when you first turn up in the town. At Winton, though, there's usually a bit more happening than that. The area itself is just mindlessly beautiful. It doesn't matter where you look. There's a panoramic photo. You know, there's lots of friends out there like John Elliott, the photographer, who's been taking photographs and doing books for the country music stars for the last 30, 40, 50 years. I try to suck up to him as much as I can in case he wants to do mine. But no, it's just a lovely area. It's quite wonderful. Some of the dinosaur exhibits that are out in that area are quite extraordinary too.
You talked about the motel room. Is that one of the things that is a downside? Different bed, different area, different motel, and constant moving around for what you need to do?
The worst thing, right, is that you go to a motel and they'll go into instructional mode. Stop it. Especially with people that have been on the road 45 years. I don't want to know where the kettle or the iron is, and I don't want to know about putting the key into a slot to turn the air conditioner on, because I don't want to spend 5 minutes talking to you about that crap.
I was talking to a sound guy who's doing a lot of travelling, and he was saying one of the downsides is the constant moving and motels and hotels and rooms, and it's always good to be back in his own bed.
I don't know. I think I was born for the road, if that's the case, because I don't... Born for the Road, it's a good name for an album. Born for the Road. No, it's to me, it doesn't worry me at all. I love it. I love travelling. I love getting out there. I love even camping under the stars sometimes, just on the side of the road if I get, too tired. But yeah, no, I just love it.
What's your favourite festival?
Oh, have I got to say the Gympie Muster? Yeah, 27 years in a row I played at the Gympie Muster. I was one of the feature artists there for 27 years in a row. And when Mary Lou died, the woman that was running it for a long, long, long time, and I call them the vultures from Gympie moved in, I never got an email or a phone call. Not one email, not one phone call, never even, well, thank you for your service, but we don't want to use you again. Nothing, not a thing. It was actually quite... It was like losing an old friend, really. That's what it was, and I don't think they understand that, the people that run these festivals. If you're there for a long, long, long time, like Tamworth, to disregard you and to throw you away like as if you're just either we don't want you anymore, or you're too old, or we've had enough of you, or whatever, but to just discard you without even a telephone call or an email, I think it's absolutely disgusting, but that's just me. Maybe that's just me.
What do you put it down to? Why did they?
Oh, ignorance, complete ignorance. I mean, when Mary Lou passed away, she was running it, as I said, for many, many, many years. We loved her. We all loved her. She was a rock. You didn't want to cross her, but she was lovely. But when she passed away, the festival completely changed. It lost character, quite frankly. It became a different festival.
Big call.
It was a big call to fill her shoes. And the first person they used put a Ferris wheel up a Ferris wheel at the Gympie Muster, and I remember distinctly going, well, this is ridiculous, and I took a trip up to the top, and guess what? You couldn't see the main stage from the top of the Ferris wheel. What was the point of that? Don't get me started.
So these days, the Gympie Muster's still got a fond place in your heart?
Well, for the old days, I mean, many of us, there was 4 or 5 artists that had been there for a quarter of a century, and none of us were called back when the new board, as it were, took over. None of it was called back. So an open letter to Gympie Muster: get stuffed. No, seriously, it was like losing an old friend, and that's what it felt like, and it was terrible. It was terrible.
Well, they moved away from the Gympie Country Music Muster just to be the Gympie Muster, and they wanted more rock. They had Barnsey, they had, that more rocky feel to it. Yeah,
and more money had to be spent on security, right? Because you had rum pigs out there going crazy. No, country music Gympie Muster was always a country music festival, and it should have remained like that. I may be an old fogey, I am at 64, but it should have remained as a country music festival in my opinion, but that's nothing more than, we can't do anything about that.
Do you think it should go back to its halcyon roots? Do you think it's sort of fallen away because of the way they've taken it?
Without a doubt. If nobody can see that, then they're fools. Do it like a lot of the other smaller festivals are doing, that are actually growing in numbers simply because they're catering for what used to be, what Gympie Muster and Tamworth used to cater for. A family-oriented festival, something that was for the whole family, not just for young people. It was for everybody. And that's something they need to learn again. Because even Winton, for instance, I'm going up next weekend, as we talked about it. It's sort of like a back to basics. They're going back to the old stuff, and that's what'll pull them in. I think people are getting. I think there's a yearning, even from young people, to learn about what Australia is and what Australia was, what Australia still is, what Australia can be. I think there's still a yearning for that, even with young people, and I think that's what they're missing out on. And I think when some festivals cater for that, they win in a big way. There's an ownership of the festival.
Is there a need to bring a new audience, a younger audience? Because a lot of the audiences at these festivals are elderly.
They'll always be elderly. It's grey nomads that mostly that a lot of these festivals cater for in the first place. Some of them bring their kids, fine. But in the end, the kids are catered for with rock and roll festivals left, right and centre. Why do you need to cater for young people? The only reason is that these festivals turn to young people is they think they can make more money. And they don't. It falls away. Somebody should learn from that.
Tamworth.
They don't. They don't care.
Why not?
Well, they don't care. They hold their hand out for the money and then completely ignore it. They don't care as long as they get paid. No.
What, the artists, the council?
Oh, the whole lot. Even the CMAA, the Country Music Association of Australia, is just is run by publishing and record company interests. And it will always be the case. I'm not saying that's wrong or right. I'm just saying that's the case. That's what it is. It's they try to build the market from a core group that's always been the same core group for 20 years. I mean, what artists have been at the top in Australian country music for the last 20, 30 years? The same group. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Has Tamworth lost its soul?
I think a lot of the big festivals have lost their soul. Absolutely they have. Because they always try to cater for a younger audience. Now, the younger audience, the catering for that's a synonym for we want to make more money. But in the end, they don't, because the older audience falls off. The audience that's always been with them falls off because they're not catering for them anymore. And that's the biggest problem with a lot of these festivals.
It's a tough balance.
I don't think it's very tough at all. I think they're just, what you've got is a whole range of people who... Let me give you a parallel here with my career. I did the clubs in rural areas in Australia, mostly outback New South Wales, top of Victoria, bottom of Queensland. And I did that for 40 years with all the major clubs around everywhere. And I was pulling a good audience in those clubs as a solo artist on the weekends, as it were. What I found was that after about 20 to 25 years, the older managers were passing on and younger managers were moving in straight with an MBA from a university in one of the capital cities, trying to up their management skills by taking on a club and, making it live. We'll get the young people in, we'll do that. Every one of them, nearly every one of them failed. Nearly every one of them failed. Simply because they didn't understand what entertainment is for those people. They assumed that, I don't like using the word discotheque, but, they wanted to put on more modern music for young people to come to the clubs. But young people didn't go to the clubs. They went to the pubs more than likely. But all of that changed, and so my work started to dwindle in those areas. But 5 or 6 years later, all of a sudden I was getting, get that bloke back, that Pixie bloke, because he was pulling people in. So all of a sudden the work came back again. And that's how I know the evidence is there, because I mustn't have been the only one. So it's this idea that, that to cater for a younger audience is just a synonym for we want to make more money. And you don't make it by cutting the throats of the people that have helped you out for 30 or 40 years. You don't do it by taking their work away and putting in what you would deem more modern artists, or whatever the word they use.
So then who would you say would be the most cashed up demographic for audiences?
Oh, definitely the 40 to 60-year-old, without a doubt. They've got the most disposable income. Why would you cater for a younger audience when you've got that demographic that's already working for you? It's bizarre. It's just bizarre. I fail to see, and I see it happening all over Australia at major festivals that have gone, let's cater for a younger audience, make more money, and they've failed and they've gone back again. So that, we start getting jobs again. It happened in Western Australia at the Boyup Brook. It happened in Tamworth. It's happening in Tamworth. We see, not so much Tamworth, because Tamworth's never cared. They've never cared about their country music festival, their country music capital image. They've never cared about it. They've never capitalised on it. They've even scrunched the festival down and put the highway through the middle of it now. So they really don't care at all. Gympie Muster, we saw it happen there. We've seen it happen everywhere. But those, what we're seeing is a whole lot of smaller festivals that have benefited dramatically out of these major festivals changing their role.
Is it, though, more of the same, though, when you say these smaller fringe festivals are essentially using a core group of artists by bringing, say, a more rocky feel, or changing the music genre that some of these festivals... It's
always more rocky feel. It's never country music has never changed to folk, right? It's never ever changed that way. It's always been more rockier. That's the idea, and it's always failed. I can't see it happening. Because they've made other events for that sort of thing now. Like rocks. CMC rocks so and so. CMC rocks so and so. That's an event that was made to cater for the younger audience, as it were. Which has taken audiences away from some of the major festivals. So there's no need for those major festivals to change. Never was.
With a lot of the country stars now starting to cross over, and they are trying to become more rocky, is that because of what is happening with the festivals? They're trying to adapt?
I don't believe that's true. I think it's actually going the other way. If you look at the evidence in America, the evidence is completely the other way around, that country is becoming more country again. And that's a fact. Just have a look what's happening in America. You can see that.
How would you define sort of the country feel? What do you class as a country song or country music? Because the genre is so spread out these days.
It is. It always has been. We can go back into history here if you want to. We can start with, the grandfather of the great grandfather of country music. Many people would say Jimmy Rogers, the singing brakeman. But he was just an entertainer. I don't think people know the history of Jimmy Rogers. Jimmy Rogers wasn't always a country music entertainer. Country music, white man's blues, was starting to take off in the early 30s. Was starting to take off. He changed from being a black-faced artist. He was a black-faced mammy. He was that sort of artist, and he put on a cowboy hat, mainly because he had consumption and couldn't do the rigorous touring anymore. So he put on a cowboy hat and started singing railroad songs. That's how Jimmy Rogers became Jimmy Rogers. If we move further on into country music history, we look at arguably the first rock and roll song in history, because of what people deem rock and roll as the backbeat. It wasn't invented by Rock Around the Clock, Bill Haley and his band at all. Arguably the world's first rock and roll song is Move It On Over by Hank Williams in 1948. 7 years before Rock Around the Clock was recorded. And Bill Haley, I might add, the so-called grandfather of rock and roll, before he had that album out, before he became the grandfather of rock and roll with Rock Around the Clock, with the backbeat, was a yodeling cowboy singer with a 10-gallon hat.
You seem to be quite a music historian. Have you always been that? Does it interest you?
Oh, it doesn't just interest me. It's what it's all about. If I don't know, see, my whole show, everything I've been for 40, 50 years in my career has always been about trying to teach people about the history of country music and how it's developed from the early days into Western swing, into that rockabilly beat, into the country music we know today. When in the 60s, when strings first started to come into country music, people were going, oh no. And then, Ray Charles put out that amazing album that had a lot of Cindy Walker songs on it that just wowed people. That was how country music changed. It changed in an organic way. And then they tried to use brass came in and so on. But it always goes back to songs about people, heritage, and culture. It always goes back to that. And it always will be. Country music is definable, but it's never had the academia supplied to it like jazz and classical music and blues has. In fact, I went to university a few years ago because I was work was running low, quite frankly, because of these, places that I'd worked at for 40, 50 years and pulling good crowds. They wanted to make more money that will bring a younger audience in. So they discarded a lot of us. And so I went to university to see if the brain was still working. So I went to university and a lecturer who shall remain nameless, who actually went on to manage one of the newer Gympie musters and failed terribly. She sat there in class with me in her class and said to me, modern rock music is a confluence of jazz and blues. And I was waiting for the and country. It never came. So I wrote a 6-page paper for the end of term thesis about how she was wrong. And I actually got a high distinction for it. So, honestly, it bothers me that that's being taught in schools, and it still is. They don't understand the importance of what country music has done to both sides of the fence.
Have you thought of moving across and diversifying? But you seem pretty strong in your roots.
Oh, look, Pixie Down Country Theatre in the 90s, which really, spurred me on to do all this, that was all about bringing the history of country music to people in a multimedia way. I used video and I used, reactive stage sets and everything. But I got no support from the industry at all in Tamworth. And that goes to show you how little there is, how little the knowledge is. And there's wonderful people sitting in Tamworth who've got some amazing knowledge that never gets out. There's nowhere for them to express themselves. And that's how I know that people just don't care, which is such a terrible shame. They do in America. They care in America. I mean, Jimmy Rogers' guitar's sitting there in a glass case in one of the one of the music museums. I mean, they do care in America. Mind you, they've probably got the money to care, I suppose. They've got the money to care. I don't know if that means anything, but it just struck me as that's probably how it is.
Has the industry been good to you?
The people have been good to me. My fans have been good to me. No, the industry sucks. The industry sucks black holes. It doesn't look at the core of their industry. They look at the stars on the outside. They never look at the core of the industry, the backbone of the industry. They never look at that, especially not here in Australia.
What do you put that down to?
Oh, lots of things. I mean, I wouldn't. There'd be a list this long, of things. Why? Yeah, I mean, money would be one of them. They don't see that there's any. They don't see there's any functionality in doing that. I proposed years ago in Tamworth they should have a hall of fame that's an active gig with a coffee shop, right, and a museum. Now they could do that, but nobody's ever come up with the money or the wherewithal to push it forward. I tried to get people interested for years, but just could never ever just get the right group of people together at the right time.
Do we not give enough acknowledgement to our industry from within?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, what we do is we placate. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, the busts in Tamworth, right? The busts of our country music legends in Tamworth is funded by private money. They have to scrabble and beg and borrow. There's no funding for it per se. The museums are the same. There's no real funding, no real heart and soul behind it. The council don't really throw any money to it at all. To give you an idea of how I always used to put this as a joke, and I there's a couple of things here which is probably going to really annoy people, but hey, I've done that for 50 years, haven't I? The fact of the matter is that I'm one of the only people that sort of speak like this, and whether I'm right or wrong, time will tell. To give you an example of it, one of the biggest events at the Country Music Festival is the cavalcade down the main street of Tamworth. So what did they do one year, 10 or so years ago? They put a medium strip down the main street of Peel Street and put London plane trees in it. So now people can't see one side of the street to the other. They have to position cameras in certain areas. There's no clear line of sight for the cavalcade anymore. That tells me that's a city that doesn't care about the country music, about the festival.
Well, the organising people changed and they went to became part of the council. So is it the council's fault?
Well, partly. It's partly the Country Music Association. It's partly the people of Tamworth who used to take holidays and hire their houses out to people during the Tamworth Country Music Festival because they don't like country music. It benefited them in many, many ways, such as lowering their rates, doing lots of things. It brought money into the town. It did.
What about Gympie? Does it bring enough money into Gympie? Because
I don't know about. I honestly can't comment about Gympie in that way. And besides that, it's in the Ammermoor State Forest, so I don't really know whether it brings money into the town, but you can only assume so since all the motels are full. Oh, and prices rise, don't they? The motel prices rise during those times. And anybody who says they don't is lying through their teeth, because in Tamworth we know, in Gympie Muster, during the Gympie Muster, we know that's the case. In fact, there's several motels that have been built here in Gympie because of the Gympie Muster.
Do they not make it peak season so that are they justified in putting their prices up?
Anybody's justified with putting their prices up for whatever reason they want. But when it's gouging, that's when it gets a little bit rough for me. When it's absolute gouging, that's where it starts to hurt. I mean, I can give you lots of examples of this, but it's pointless. A $65 a night motel goes up to $120. That's gouging. That's gouging. It's nothing more than that.
What started it all for you? Let's go back to the early days. Paul Jenkins.
Yes, I think people who call me Paul these days, they've either known me for 40 to 50 years, or I owe them money. One or the other. Look, the first time I was in a studio, I was about 16-year-old, and I was called out to Hadley Records in Tamworth. Eric and Hilary Scott. Eric Scott was one of the original founding fathers of the Tamworth Country Music Festival, as it were, and the country music capital idea in the early 70s. Well, that was in the late 60s, but the early 70s when it started up, 72, 73. Eric Scott from Hadley Records, I got a phone call from him one day to come out and play What a Friend We Have in Jesus behind one of Rick and Thel Carey's famous old gospel monologues. And that fact I'm very proud of. In fact, I've said that in my shows for 50-odd years. It went from there. I've literally played on thousands of country music recordings. It would be thousands. There's no two ways about that. Not hundreds, but thousands, literally. It's been a joy, mostly a joy, because a lot of these people are, I tend to think that a lot of our country music is actually folk music in a way, because it talks about culture and family and who we are as Australians, all of that. A lot of it's on an amateur level, so people will write these songs about their family, their mothers, their fathers, their kids, their sons, their dogs, their cattle, their sheep, their farms, and those people will want those songs recorded, and that's how that's all been good for a lot of us, because we've recorded on those, and many of us take it very, very seriously when we record on those songs. They mightn't be number one hits, they mightn't be the best songs, but we take them seriously. Every time we go into a studio, we play with our heart and our soul, and we listen to the words, and we take it. It actually moves me still today to think about a lot of these people that have gone in and opened their hearts up in this way and let us perform on these songs. And we don't get paid much money for it. We never have. But that's not really what it's about. It never has been.
What took you to get into music, though, in the first place?
Oh, well, I was a bit of a musical child, I suppose. Very poor family. And when I say poor family, we were poor in the sense of my father didn't have a job and was rather itinerant in the sense that he lacked some education, even though he was famous in the 30s as an ice skater. He didn't have the wherewithal to move forward into the future for whatever reason. My mother was a cripple and she died when I was 13 in Tamworth. And that's where we came through Gundawindi, Moree, Tamworth, from Tasmania to the Gold Coast to Gundawindi for the reason that money was flittering away. So by the time we got to Gundawindi, there was just nothing. We had nothing. Lived in a flat above a bread shop, above a laundry in Gundawindi. A lot of my early friends were Aboriginal kids because I was small and shy and didn't get along a lot with the taller cornstalk white kids. They were double my size usually. I learned to ride a bike from Gundawindi down to, this is getting away from the story a bit, but I learned to ride a bike with my dad from Gundawindi to Boggabilla to the Wobbly Boot Hotel when I was a kid. And years later sang and played the song, The Wobbly Boot Hotel, with Stan Coster, who wrote the damn thing. I mean, look, I was always musically oriented. I was always going to be on stage. That was inevitable. If I had my druthers, I would probably be an actor. I would probably be a musical, in musical comedy. But I'm not the tall, lanky type to do Oklahomas and stuff like that. Even though I've played in those sort of things.
That and Fiddler on the Roof, I believe.
Well, I did Fiddler on the Roof. I did Oklahoma. I did, South Pacific when I was a kid. If I had my druthers, I'd probably be doing that. But as it is, the violin, my father bought me a violin for my 13th birthday, just after Mum died, desperately trying to keep me off the streets. It succeeded. I just loved this thing. When I opened the case up, I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with it. It was one of those sort of spiritual things almost.
Wow.
It was rather like that. I still remember it, getting chills, looking at it, the instrument, knowing that, wow, what is this? I want to learn how to play this.
Out in the bush.
Yeah. And that's where the idea of making bird noises and stuff came from. Later on, when I worked with people like John Williamson, was the bird noises and stuff. It was just a thing to do as a rather strange young kid growing up in the bush.
Because it's a strange instrument to be starting on. A lot say start on guitar.
Well, it's one of those instruments, isn't it? Guitar's everywhere. It's ubiquitous with learning how to play songs. You know 3 chords. You know every song in the world, literally.
Did you look at guitar?
Oh, I play guitar. I play mandolin. I play, bass, drums, keyboards. I do all sorts of things in the studio. I produce songs for people now myself, for bugger all, because I feel as though that's the right thing to do, to give my talent back to the people that help me bring it forward. I've always wanted to be well known, a star, as it were, but I never had those things. I wasn't handsome, tall. I didn't. I had a good voice, but it was high, girly sort of a voice. I played the fiddle. I didn't play, but I made up my mind when I left Buddy Williams in 1979, touring with him for 9 months, going around the Aboriginal missions through their first year of self-determination, and seeing what the white people had done to them. That was really what cemented my love of my First Nation people. And I left Buddy Williams, and I bypassed Tamworth on the way back and went straight to Sydney to make my fame and fortune. I'm still waiting on the money. But I went to Sydney to make my fame and fortune, and luckily, through sheer luck, and luck is, we know what luck's all about, being prepared when the opportunity comes along. Well, I was prepared, and the opportunity came along. So I got into one of the biggest club shows in Australia's history, Lester Coombs' Are You Ready for the Country? That was extraordinary. 2 years. Literally hundreds of thousands of people saw me. I was the first thing they saw in the show, because I was pushed out the front like a little boy playing Red River Valley to Lester's monologue, and then the curtains opened to this huge production show. So I was the first thing that people saw for 2 years back in the early 80s. Then I went on to play with Digger Revell. Then I got the phone call to play with Buller McCanker, then John Williamson. And then I left John and realised that I had an audience. I had my own audience, and so that's where Pixieland Country Theatre came in. And I built that up over 5 years. It's the Hands of Fame. I'm the only instrumentalist in the Wax Museum in Tamworth. I'm very, very proud of that fact. I got my own golden, I was with the Hired Hands back in 84. We got, that was my first golden guitar with the band. I won 2 of my own back-to-back in the early 90s. But I've been a part of gold guitar wins for 30 or 40 years. I've played with Keith Urban and people like that. I did 3 albums of Jimmy Barnes. It hasn't just been country music. It's been, it's been a lot of things. So,
what was he like to work with?
Oh, fabulous, because he had a lot of money.
Tell me about the experience working with someone like Jimmy Barnes, who's quite an icon, and to have a fiddle player, you wouldn't expect it.
It was during his phase when he was looking to do everybody was doing the unplugged thing. Well, the unplugged thing was great for country music musicians. Why? Because we were the only ones that could play unplugged. We were the only musicians that could actually get up there and really pull it out while, playing unplugged. With the fiddle, just to give an example, the fiddle's a rather unique instrument because you can do things like a really aggressive harmonic playing that's, You can make it sound really aggressive if you want to, and so during that time when Jimmy was looking at doing those things, I played on the album before Flesh and Wood, and then Flesh and Wood, which was the big sort of acoustic album. I got to play with some of the greatest rock musicians in Australia's history during that time. It was wonderful. So my name's been around, so that's good. That's good.
You talk about some of the big rock musicians. Let's name names. And who were some of your favourites?
Oh, well, look, Jimmy was fun because he really had the bucks behind him. He had an amazing studio under his house down the south coast at the time, and Jimmy absolutely loves his country music, and a lot of people don't know this, but Jimmy Barnes loves his country music, loves Hank Williams. So he loved playing Hank Williams late at night after sessions and stuff, and it was just a lot of fun, And it's really nice staying at what in essence is a 5-star motel room with a chef on call 24 hours. That's really cool. And he'd do things like, we did some cool things like put the fiddle through twin Leslies either side of a studio, razz it up a bit. It was a lot of fun. Over the years I've, with various bands and artists and groups that I've played with, I've performed with Joe Cocker.
I believe you also played with Cher.
Oh, Cher, we did. When I was with Digger Revell, we supported Cher in her big Las Vegas show she brought over to Australia in the 80s. That was amazing, 30-piece orchestra and everything was extraordinary. A lot of people didn't know this, but it was quite extraordinary. Cher was on stage. She opened the show as one of her characters from the old 60s television show as a cleaning woman. She was the cleaning woman, right? So you're watching Cher on stage doing this, 15 minutes as the show starts cleaning the stage, and everybody's laughing at Cher during this. Cher, well, it wasn't Cher, it was a female impersonator. But everybody thought it was Cher. She had 2 female impersonators in the show. One did her, and the other guy, Kenny Sasha, did Dionne Warwick and Bette Midler so well that it was just exactly like the real people. And that enabled Cher to do these amazing split-section costume changes, which wowed the audience going, how the hell did she do that? Well, she didn't. She was already fitted out the back, and she'd come up on a big dais, and it was the other guy who slipped into a stairwell on stage, disappeared, and you thought, how did that happen? And Cher disappeared and then it reappeared. Well, it wasn't. It was one of the female impersonators. Then one of the highlights of my career is that Bob Dylan walked out of backstage when I supported Bob Dylan in Tamworth, and I was the only artist. Still to this day, I have no idea how this happened or how it eventuated. But there are some people in the industry who really love what I do, and I don't know who you are. I know some of you, others I don't, but big hug. But I don't know. But he got rid of the other support acts he had on the tour, and I was the only support act in Tamworth. So it was just amazing. And I walked in, and I've got no pictures of this. And a lot of this stuff was done before social media, which is really unfortunate for me. But Bob Dylan walked out of the dressing room in a white cowboy outfit, head to toe leather hat, white, all white thing, jeans, the whole thing. Walked up to me, and he's gone, "You must be Pixie." And I've got that in my head. Bob Dylan knew my name.
Pixie, how did that name come about in the first place?
Oh, gosh. I dread being asked this because it's not a nice story. Lester Coombs was a tyrant back in 1981, 1982. An absolute tyrant. I learnt so much from Lester. Yeah, I absolutely adore Lester. But there's 90% of people who work with Lester hate him, and there's the other 10% who knew exactly how good he was. And I'm one of that 10%. He was an absolute tyrant. He had a load of techniques that he used to put his tyranny on people with. You can't argue with a man that walks out and blasts you for doing something wrong in the last show, but all he's got on is a pair of underpants and a wet patch at the front. You can't argue with a man that does that. I think that was a technique of his. Anyway, but he used to come out and blast people. He'd pick on them, right? But for some reason he saw talent in me, and he used me in a certain way that just... And I learned a lot from Lester. But one of the dancing girls one night, it was a huge big show. You've got to understand, Lester's show it had backstage projection before any of that was used back in 81, 82. Like, he knew what was happening. He really did. Flash pots, backstage projection, raised daises and stuff, and dancers and just costumes galore that were always changed. It was a huge Las Vegas style show in Australia. Nobody... anyway, one of the dancing girls one night, I've just finished a rip-roaring thing, and we've raced off stage to change into something else with LED lights on the hat and things and stuff. And it was changing, and all of a sudden I heard this crunch, and I knew exactly what it was. It was my fiddle had been stood on. Oh. Somebody had stood on my fiddle. I just knew it. And I didn't have a backup one. And it was one of the dancing girls. And I just roared at her when she came off stage. I was so pissed off. And I roared at her. I said, you... And she was... You've got to understand... She was 6 foot, and I was tiny little thing. She was, and she just erupted at me, and pushed me, and basically said, "Piss off, you little pixie!" And the rest of the band, absolutely just rolled with laughter over it, and that's where the name stuck. And it just went from show to show. Musos with, "Oh, you're getting Pixie," oh shit, and that's just how it went on, and that's how I got the name. She, unfortunately, the dancing girl, and why I say it's a tragic story, horrible story, is the dancing girl. She died in a cocaine heist in Los Angeles in the late 80s. She got killed in a shootout in Los Angeles. Yeah, bit of a tragic story, but.
Is it something that you identify now with, being Pixie?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing's been revolved around that. I've got my logo that the Pixie logo. I've signed records with Pixie, the Pixie logo. The Pixie logo's been one of the best things that ever happened to me. Thanks. I can't even remember her name anymore. God love you, whoever you were. Yeah.
You lost a violin at that stage. What are they worth, the violin that we've got sitting on the desk there?
Truly, I've never really had the money or the wherewithal to buy. I've had a lot of sponsors over the years, which has been really good for me, especially epochstrings.com.au. They've been really good to me. This is just made by Anamato Springs in Brisbane. It's brought in. It's just a $500 acoustic fiddle. That's all that is. A $500 acoustic violin. A lovely one. I played about 20 of them that day, and I picked this one because it's got a nice tone. But I know people who spend $500 on a bow. I've never spent any more than $30 on a bow because they're just picks to me. I throw them away and hit people with them and poke people up the bum and do all sorts of stupid things with the bow. I never want to get an expensive one, but my electric fiddles are at the moment, as I said, sponsored by epochstrings.com.au. Wonderful Australian company. They've been doing research into making electric fiddles with all different colours for kids, and they've got 4 strings and 5 strings. They do cellos and double basses now, and they're a wonderful company. Yeah.
Have you played any really expensive instruments?
I had. Okay. Here's a story. When I was 14, 15-year-old, this is where I was going to allude to this at some stage. I'm glad you asked the question, because my violin teacher, my one and only violin teacher, was a guy called Slava Tyrov. He was a Russian guy. His main instrument was saxophone, not violin at all. And he did play in Louis Armstrong's band.
Wow.
Yep. I've seen the picture. He was an old man. He died choking on a fishbone in the Tamworth Cafe, which was it was horrendous for me. I remember going up to the lesson on the Thursday and he wasn't there, and I knew something was wrong because he just didn't miss a lesson. He didn't do it.
How old were you at this stage?
Oh, I was only 14 or 15. 14, 15. But I had some acumen for the fiddle. I wanted to play it, and he saw that. He was a hard man. He didn't suffer fools. Consequently, he didn't have many pupils because of this. But my father, this is just after Mum died, of course, bought me this violin out of the hard-earned money that he got from digging council roads or something. It was a terrible violin. It was a lark. It cost about, I don't know, $80 at the time. Slava hated it. He also hated anybody that if he spent time with you and spent time on you, if you threw that in the gutter, if you threw that away by not practicing or not doing something he told you to do, he would get violently angry. And this is probably why he didn't have many pupils. But I remember this particular day. It was about 6 months I'd been working with him, and I didn't know that he wasn't charging my father any money. I didn't know.
Wow.
I didn't know that he wasn't. He only had 6 pupils, but he wasn't charging for my tutoring. He was doing it out because he believed I had something. I didn't practice this week, and he knew when I came, and he got so angry, red in the face, and I got really scared. He grabbed my violin and threw it out the window, and it smashed on the driveway. I was in tears. I ran out in tears, just ran away in tears. My dad, of course, went up to see him. So, what did you do? I don't know what they said. But anyway, my dad said, you've got to go up to practice tomorrow. And so I haven't got a violin. Slava wants to go up. Slava gave me his Guarneri to play. He had a Guarneri violin. It was worth about $30,000.
Wow.
And he gave me his violin to play. Now, long and short of it is that after I had this for about 6 weeks. I was playing on this wonderful instrument. It was extraordinary. It sounded like angels. To me, it was so far away from the lark violin, the Chinese violin that I had. It was ridiculous. It just sang like angels. And he died 6 weeks later. His daughter came up from Sydney and repossessed it, and I never saw it again. Never saw anything again. That was it. But my second violin was, as fate would have it, fell into my hands about 3 weeks later. It was sold to me by this guy in the street in Tamworth, and it was green coloured with abalone inlay all over it. It was a gypsy fiddle, and he sold it to me for the princely sum of $50. And I thought, what was that? It turned out to be stolen. It turned out to be stolen from Buddy Weston, I believe. And Buddy Weston came up to me a year or so later at the Tamworth Festival and said, that's my violin.
Oops.
But he said, you play it better than I could. Keep it. That was that.
Did he know you bought it?
Yeah, for $50. He said, I paid about $200 for it, he said. Whatever, I don't know. But it just looked lovely because it had... Anyway, it cracked up in the heat of the Northern Territory about 2 years later when I was up there doing something or other. It just fell apart one day because they're only made with water-based glues. People don't realise how amazingly fragile they actually are, even though they're really, really strong in a tensile way. It's everything that's holding it together in a... But if anything fails, it completely fails.
How much do you look after them? Where do they sit on the totem pole of what you like to do when you're
I'm just so terrible. So bad. I'm so bad. Honestly, I don't think I deserve an instrument, really. I just treat them something terribly now.
Is that just a little bit of complacency that you've played them for so long?
This is where it gets hard for me when people ask me these sort of questions, because I go, well, like I've always classed myself as an entertainer. I've never seen myself as a violin player or a fiddle player, even though I've obviously been one of the best for whatever length of time, and I obviously still get work for that in studios and stuff. But I see myself more as an entertainer. It's something that's really interesting. It's part of this historic build-up of how country music and stories evolve out of it. When I was working the ships, the boats, the cruise ships, they needed to put you in a pigeonhole so they know what to call you, they know how to pay you, what level, blah blah blah. So I was put in the comedy instrumentalist pigeonhole. Now, what that meant is, to me, comedy instrumentalist. So you're funny, you don't play the instrument very well, but you're funny, and that's what gets you through it. Well, I thought, well, surely there's a way where I can play the instrument really well, but be funny as well. And luckily, through this idiot thing in here, I turned into something rather unique. I turned into something unique in Australian country music, which has probably been a detriment to me as far as country music is concerned, but not as far as the people are concerned, which is why I said to you before about, the industry doesn't care about me that much, but it's the people that my fans are the ones that have.
Is it they don't know how to take you?
Oh, definitely. That's it's probably got Also, the fact that I've been openly gay all this time. There's that as well. There's that thing. There's that as well. That's been a part of who I am as well.
Has that been to your detriment?
Oh, absolutely it has. Absolutely it has.
Out west when you were a young boy?
No. That's why I love my fans, because there's a respect there. Even though they'll put shit on me, I give it back to them on stage, and there's a respect there that's built up over the years because of that. Hey, he's a poof, right? Jeez, he's funny. There's a respect that's been built up over that, and that's wonderful. And I don't think it could occur anywhere else in the world other than Australia, where you can be like when Becky Cole came out as a lesbian, so to speak. I'd been outing her and many others for years in my shows. I used to have a joke in my show. In fact, at the Gympie Muster 20 years ago, I used to say, Becky Cole's a lesbian, and the sides of the tent would be blown out but the sides of the tent would be sucked in by people going, really? But as the years went on, I used to say that on stage, and the sides of the tent to be blown outwards with people going, we know. And that's really what it's all about. I think I think in country music, it's essential, especially here in Australia, to be yourself. And I try to tell young artists this all the time in master classes or wherever I can, that it's important to be yourself. If you're anybody else, an audience will see right through it really bloody quickly, because they're more intelligent than you are at that point, because they're looking at you. Also, the command thing. If you come out confident, the audience are relaxed, right? But if you come out, they'll tear strips off you. So what I do now is I walk out while the bloke's introducing me, going, "You finished yet? Hurry up! I'm not here all." I come out just taking everybody apart for 5 minutes before I even start, and the audience, it builds. There's a comfortability there for the audience. They know, oh, this is going to be good. This guy's got it together. I think that's essential.
How did you grow up in Tasmania? How did that work, being gay back in the...
Oh, well, I wasn't. I was just a kid.
Did you fit in with all the other kids at that stage?
No, I played doctors and doctors. No, I didn't play doctors and nurses, as it were. No, it was I was always going to be different. That was for sure. There was all, that's innate. You don't become homosexual. You don't suddenly, wean yourself off vagina and go to cock. It doesn't work like that. No, it's.
When did you know?
It's a hard question. That's an interesting and hard question. Look, probably by the time I was 11, 12, 13, I started to realise that, I better keep this quiet in certain circumstances, This is obviously not the norm. But as soon as I left school, I went, oh, well, done that, had enough of that. My best friend at school, who wasn't gay, was accused of being gay. He wasn't. That was hugely funny. That was hugely interesting for me. That was really weird. He went really strange over all of that. He was just my best friend. He wasn't, and it wasn't because of me. He was just, I wasn't particularly effeminate or anything like that. I was a smart ass. If you picked on me at school, I always looked at you as being dumber. I always looked at you as, if you picked on me at school, Peter Etheridge and all you other assholes, I always looked at you as being below me on the pecking order. As far as I'm concerned, you were less of a human being than me. And I don't know whether that wasn't taught to me or instilled in me in any way by my parents or my peers. It was just something that I innately knew that, no, you are below me for doing that, because that's just not right. And you will regret that one day, I'm sure. And over the years, many of those boys, have come up to me, and tried to shake my hand, and I've taken their hand, and it shows. I used to go to school with you, and not mention anything about the pick on, but I did. I mentioned it to them. You were an arsehole to me at school. Yeah, I was a bit. No, I laid it on them.
How did you enjoy school?
I didn't enjoy school. I did. Certain things were enjoyable. For instance, I was picked on mercilessly, absolutely mercilessly at high school. From the first year onwards. They were all country kids. It was a boarding school, and I was a dago, what's called a dago. I went to the boarding school by day, so I was in Tamworth, and I went to Farrer Memorial Agricultural High School. Picked on mercilessly at school. In fact, to give you an example of how bad it was, I was rolled in barbed wire one day and rolled down a hill, and they thought that was funny. They thought that was funny. There was a king brown snake one day they were mucking around with, and asked me to go down to this certain thing to get this, whatever, I can't remember the circumstance or something, knowing full well there was a king brown snake there, and thought that was funny. Just awful things. But here's the thing. I got them back in ways that humoured me. I probably scarred some of them for life. I electrified the piss trough at school with a 48-volt Fenton pulsar. I was a smart little bastard. Don't pick on me. I'll get you back. Might take years, but I'll get you back. That's funny to see kids in Speedos coming out of the pool, dying for a piss. Getting electrocuted as soon as the stream hits the backplate.
What was your reaction at the time?
Well, I would have got away with that, only I was in the last cubicle, locked in the last cubicle, and as soon as I heard the first kid get thrown against the doorway, I was just cracking up with laughter. Yeah, that cost me a very broken nose. But it was worth doing, Yep.
Did you have to outthink them?
Yeah. All the time. And I could, because they were stupid. Yeah, that was the thing. People who do that, you've got to understand that people who pick on other people are stupid. There is no other way to put that. They are stupid. There's no reason to pick on somebody. There's no reason to do that.
Is that their own insecurities?
Oh, absolutely. It's got everything to do with a whole range of things. It's not insecurities in a way. It's superiority too. They think they're superior to you when they're actually not. They're just thugs and stupid. But I got around that as the years went on, and I'm really, really good at judging that character too. Over the years, as being an entertainer, you really get good at judging that type of character, and I'm really good at pushing that to the limit at my shows. I'll see someone that I know is a bully, and I'll pick on him. I will pick on him mercilessly at the show until he's almost weeping. And I do that purposely because of that.
Because you can.
Because I can. And it's just the way it's their fault for doing it to me in the first place that made that. As soon as I left school and 10 years in the entertainment industry, I started to realise that there's certain inalienable things that make you powerful when you've got a microphone in your hand. To give you another example of this, when I left Buddy Williams and went down to Sydney in 1981, the caterpillar became a butterfly. Very gay aphorism. But literally that's what happened to me. I really came out of my shell during that time. Thank you, Buddy Williams, you gorgeous thing. He took me under his wing. He was just a delightful man. When I got to Sydney, I couldn't get any work. I wasn't getting any, I wanted to get work. And what do? You're fiddle. We don't need fiddle play. We don't, what do you, right? What? If Buddy Holly had played a fiddle, I'd be a millionaire. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But so I had to find ways of getting work. So I said to this one particular agent one day, I said, in frustration, I said, look, you've got to have venues, right, that your artists won't do because for whatever reason, right? Now, this particular agent, who will remain unnamed because he's quite powerful in the industry today, he said, oh, right, here's one, the Railway Hotel at Liverpool.
Rough.
Rough is not the word. Now, I've got to tell you that the guys that go to these pubs and these venues, I've befriended many of them over the years, and they're lovely, lovely people and have no reason to pick on people. There's the thing, right? There's no reason to be afraid of them because they're not going to pick on you. There's no reason. They've got no reason to pick on a little thing like me. No reason at all. And as soon as I realised that, wow, the world was open to me as an entertainer. As soon as I realised that one thing, there's no reason for a great big 6'4" bikie to pick on me. No reason at all. In fact, I can grab his leg and start rooting it, and his other mates will piss themselves laughing. It's just, there's no reason, and I've done that, there's no reason why, So I went to this Liverpool hotel one day, and it was a Sunday afternoon gig. And let me tell you the audience. Let me explain the audience at the Liverpool Hotel at the Railway Hotel at Liverpool in 1981. I walk in, I'm a fiddle player, I've got my little backing tapes that I've done, and the violin, and a microphone. I've walked in, there's 4 corners in this bar, right? So over here, you got truckies, big, okay? Over here, you've got bikies, New Zealanders and bikies. Over here, you've got Aboriginals, right? And over here, you've got another crowd of thugs of some kind, the outer Sydney western suburbs thugs, right? And a lot of these venues ended up giving me work over the years because of the fact that when I was there, they never had a problem because they were all too busy laughing. That's when I realised the power that you have as an entertainer and the importance of it as well. The importance of being an entertainer. You have a duty as an entertainer. That's how I've really taken that to heart. To teach an audience, to take them through certain things that they need to be taught. And I took that on really powerfully, really strongly. I took that on because I believe that that's absolute genuine thing you have to do as an entertainer is the power that you have, and you've got to be careful with it. But at places like the Liverpool Hotel, the Railway Hotel at Liverpool, is the fact that, I realised that my job is to be a cooler, if you will. Not a bouncer, but a cooler. I've got to cool this situation down. And how do you do that? Well, I'll just be the idiot. I'll just be the idiot. I used to do, I do the sound check, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, and they're all going, oh, test 1, 2, test, yeah, fucking. And so I chucked the microphone to a big Kiwi guy. He said, yeah, you fucking do it then, right? And then you get the microphone and Paul Carter, and all his mates would start pissing themselves around. I said, fine, you were doing the sound check, I don't have to worry. Those sort of things, letting yourself be moulded by the audience too it's a really important thing. I used to do the Macquarie Arms Hotel at Windsor on the back of a truck, and the publican used to always love having me because he had 3 of the biggest bikie gangs in Australia come to the hotel on the weekends and cause all sorts of trouble. But when I was there on the back of that truck on Saturday afternoons, there was hardly a problem because they were too busy having a good time. I'd be picking on them and they'd just be pissed themselves. Little bloke, he just said that to you? Do you hear what he just said to you? Yeah.
It was a change from being picked on for being the small guy to being the small guy being able to pick on the big guys. It
sort of reversed almost, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful, and that's how it's been over the years. I still get. Don't get me wrong. Occasionally there's dickheads that you just are so dumb that you just, and that's what I'm saying. People that pick on you are really dumb. They just are dumb, stupid idiots. They just don't get it. They don't get anything. And they'll be like that with anybody. It's not just you.
How do you feel when you're making people laugh?
Oh, it's the greatest feeling in the world. Honestly, I know why comedians are so... I know why real comedians, I say the real comedians.
Wouldn't you call yourself a comedian?
No, I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm just funny. I'm not a comedian.
Is that tough? To be funny? Is there pressure to be funny?
There's no pressure to be funny. I'm just naturally funny. I'm just an idiot on stage. I love doing stupid bloody things and that make people laugh. I just love that. It's like a family. It's like, to me, it just become a family. They just become, my family for that 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. I just love them. I really love them. And I think that comes across in my performances, the fact that I actually love them. And, it doesn't matter. Occasionally you'll get the idiot. There was one guy, where was it? Parks. No, Forbes, down there, central New South Wales there, Forbes. And for some reason, he didn't like the fact that I was gay, right? That was his thing. It didn't matter, nothing else mattered, but the fact that I was gay. He'd come to my show, right? And he'd walk around telling people, you know he's gay, right? You know he's gay. They'd be clapping, having a good. Yeah, why you know he's gay, right? He's a freaking poofter. You know he's up the bum. He's all that, and he was doing this. That's what he'd do. That was his thing, right? I could never get over him. I could never get past him. That was his thing, right? There's another guy at Moree at 2 shows until I said, until I got him banned, until I said, listen, if he comes to the gig's over. I'm done. I'm out of here, right? There's one guy. He's only a young guy. He's like, I was 45 and he's only like 18, 19, 20. Just hated me. Absolutely hated me. Just didn't. And I remember one night he got behind me on the area where I played in the club. He got behind me. And towards the end of the night, he just grabbed the power cord and he went like this, and just stopped my show. Just went like that. I mean, that's just dumb, isn't it? It's just the stupidity of that is just unbelievable. And some people you just can't get around. But it's just 1 or 2 people. It's not dozens. It's 1 or 2 over 40, 50 years. How good is that?
Were you obsessed with the violin back in the day when you started? Were you constantly, when you didn't have to, would it be something that you just want to play all the time?
I tell kids, when I started on this thing, it was in my hand, 24/7. It was just there all the time. Luckily, in Sydney, when I went to Sydney, I lived in Rozelle. For some reason, I lived with a guitar player called Jim Pennells, who's now one of the great jazz players in Australia and the world. I lived with him. Luckily, he was always playing Django Reinhardt. He'd say, hey, bring your fiddle in, have a listen. And I'd try to play, and I'm just hopeless because I haven't got that sort of. Yeah. Anyway, I sort of get by with it now, but he was. Every note had a chord, another chord. But next door was the saxophone player from the Dynamic Hypnotics.
Oh, wow.
And they used to rehearse at that thing, and I used to go over and play fiddle next door.
That must have been a soul kind of feeling.
It was a soul kind of feeling. Very, very good, mate. Very good. Yeah, no. I did a couple of gigs with them, actually, back in the 80s. They were wonderful. Phil and Tommy lived the next block over, Emmanuel.
Yep. It was a tragedy. I managed to meet Phil on a couple of occasions and work with him a few times.
He was always going to go early.
But a champion man.
I always knew Phil was going to kick the bucket early. We all sort of knew. He just used to charge. He charged through life, that man. Yeah. God, love him. Anyway, we had a bluegrass band together after Gold Rush back in those days. Yeah. But Tommy and Phil and we're doing the Three Weeds, the Rose, Shamrock and Thistle at Rozelle there one day, playing with Rosewood Country Bluegrass I was telling you about earlier, Mark and Marnie Burgess, and AC/DC walked in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We gave, this is a story, we gave our autographs to Kiss. We gave our autographs to Kiss in 1982. They came out to Australia to do their first big tour, and there were 10,000 screaming kids outside the Sydney Town Hall. Right, we were inside doing a gig for some sort of fair or something, doing a bluegrass set. No, it was Salt Creek Bluegrass Band. I'm sorry, it wasn't Mark and Marnie. It was Salt Creek Bluegrass Band with anyway. But we were playing there, and we knew that Kiss were coming to be on the balcony. And if you know the Sydney Town Hall, we were playing inside on the stage with all the fair and stuff going on here, and we were playing up on the stage bluegrass stuff. Good bluegrass band. Jenny Shiven on the banjo. Anyway, and there was these two walkways that go out to balconies on either side of the Town Hall in Sydney. And we heard that Kiss was going to come along, so I said, "Oh, quick, put your autograph this as Kiss, to Kiss, we love you, Salt Creek Bluegrass Band." We signed it all, right? And I got up on top of the speaker stacks. As they opened the door, Kiss came out in their big regalia and everything, and said, hey, and I handed him the piece of paper, right? And he's gone, "I haven't got a pen." He says, no, it's our autograph. And he's took it, and they've all laughed, and they've walked out to the 10,000 screaming kids. So that's that story. But probably doesn't, that wouldn't have meant a thing to them, but it was funny for us at the time.
It was a great Norman Gunston moment when he'd say, like, "Would you like an autograph?"
Yeah, would you like an autograph?
Who would you like me to make it out to?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was one of those moments, yeah.
It's been a career of moments. Is there one that sticks out to you that really you will...
So many. No. I've been asked that before. There are so many, honestly. You know, I'll tell you, there's many instances, that stick out. Not necessarily me either. It's just the situation at the time. Things like... Well, back in the old days when the Golden Guitars was a movable feast, they didn't have the venue in Tamworth they've got now, the Tamworth Regional Entertainment Centre, the Trek as it's become affectionately called. That was a movable feast. They had in a big tent once, which was a huge mistake because a big storm came through. And the central pole that holds up the circus tent? It's a lump of wood that's 30 feet high, right, like this. It came off the ground 2 or 3 metres and was jumping back down onto the ground with a big thump, and everybody was running. And I remember that. But these instances, right, it's not necessarily a thing. But one of the ones that do stick out when you ask, one of the ones that sticks out when you said that was the lack of understanding of our heroes. And I was talking about this before. Buddy Williams walked out on stage. It was at the Dressage Centre in a tin shed. And it was bound to be, because it rained again. And it was just it was raining so loud that they had to stop the performance a number of times because you just simply couldn't hear anything.
Wow.
And I remember Buddy Williams walking out when the rain had subsided. Buddy Williams had walked out and he started doing his, "There's a spot that's near and dear to me, back there's," wearing his big baritone voice. Beautiful, extraordinary. A couple of Americans were there, Minnie Pearl, I believe, and a couple of others were there. And Buddy Williams walked out on stage and started to do his yodeling and his things. And at the end of it, they automatically gave him a standing ovation. But they were the only 2 or 3 people that stood up. The only ones. They thought he was amazing. They thought he was obviously an Australian legend. Yep. It goes to show you how,
Because you've won a couple of golden guitars.
Yeah, I've actually got 2. The 2 I've got at home, out of the 5 that I can claim, the 2 at home that I've got, the 2 ones that I won back-to-back Instrumental Awards for in 93, 94.
Kanga's one of my favourites.
Well, Kanga and Kindee, very original instrumentals. They're actually real ones. And I say real ones, and there's a bit of a joke amongst the aficionados or the historians of the industry. A bit of a joke amongst us because we say real ones because they're ones that were actually founded in the Minson Scientific Factory by John Minson. They're actually made by John Minson. So, yeah, they're real ones as far as we're concerned.
Well,
they're heavier too, they're real.
Kindy and Kanga, could you give us a little bit of a
Well, Kindy's just a... Kindy... It's a polka that I wrote. It's nothing special, but Kanga was written because I saw Earl Scruggs, the Scruggs style of banjo playing with his... He was, up until then, the Reno style was a two-finger banjo style, but Earl Scruggs used three fingers. He had these Scruggs tunable pegs, and he used to do back behind the bridge picking. And I thought, how could I translate that onto the fiddle? Well, it's already done. Violinists already do pizzicato, you know. They already do pizzicato. So could I stick that in a bluegrass song? And I did, because I come up with a story of watching kangaroos bounce across an outback fence. So I used that as spotting where the kangaroos are bouncing across the outback fence. Yeah. I've always loved the slow things with the fiddle though. That's always got me as the... I love that. That's where the fiddle really comes alive, is when it sings, and that's beautiful. It's just so beautiful. It gives me goosebumps when I play it. You know, when I hear that coming out of me, it's going, wow. Oh, I'm doing that. Oh, that's good. It gives me goosebumps. So it must be okay. It must be good.
Do you have fiddle players that you look up to that you...
Oh, Christ, yes.
Who are some of the ones that...
Oh, nearly everyone in Australia. Yeah, no, I as I said, I've never classed myself as a fiddle player. I've always been an entertainer. It's a funny thing. It's really weird. Even though I can keep up with the best, I don't mind saying, but I've used it as a tool, as a... I'm sorry. I've used it as a tool to entertain. Yeah.
Entertainer, when did that sort of start to evolve? Where were you in your career when you went, wow, I can...
Oh, that's really easy. It's a great question. I don't know whether it was one particular gig, but I can give you a for instance with it. What happens when it's string breaks? What happens if the power goes out? What happens if something fails? What do you do? What do you do then? Well, you're going to have some shit to pull out. You're going to have to be funny in some way.
What about artists that don't, though?
I've seen that, and it's a horrible fail. To me, it's just, I feel so bad for them. I can do jokes about people being gay, even though they're not, and get away with it, and it gets back to them, and they still think it's funny. Yeah. Like, can you turn again? Can you turn again? Can you turn again? She's got one leg either side of the fence for years. All sorts of things. Just ask Becky Cole. I can do jokes about those sort of things. But what happens if things fail? What do you do? Have you got a dance routine? Do you do a dance routine? Do you tell jokes? What do? Do you keep them alive? And I've told young Angus Gill, I'm sort of proud to say that in a way I've had an effect on his perspicacity, if you will, because he's seen me perform over the years, and I've told him about, it's important to have things up your sleeve. If a microphone stuffs up or your guitar stuffs up or something doesn't work. Because Sarah Storer, in January, she wins 8 golden guitars. She's the talk of the town. She's the biggest star in country music history. She's the female equivalent of John Williamson. Everybody's going, ooh, wow, True Blue Sheila. Fantastic, she's gorgeous. In August, she comes to the Gympie Muster. Nick Irby, ladies and gentlemen, 8 golden guitars at the Tamworth Country Music Festival. His voice, that iconic voice of Nick Irby's. Wonderful voice. Love you, Nick. And he's now doing wedding celebrations. I'd hate to be married by Nick Irby. It would be... Anyway, so he's introducing her on stage. Will you please welcome to the stage 8 golden guitars, the talk of the town, Australia's country music, our brand new female star, Sarah Storr. And she comes out, and the band started and the guitar's not working. She's going... And this goes on for 10 minutes.
No.
10 minutes. Band's still playing. They're laughing. Audience is laughing. Nicely, but laughing. Come on.
Uncomfortably.
Uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Everybody sees that it's uncomfortable. That would never happen to me. It just cannot happen to me.
What would you do?
Can't. Well, it can't. I've got so many things up my sleeve. It just wouldn't happen. Doesn't matter. There's so many things. I wrote 3 20-minute routines of comedy, just in case something like that happens. That alone, that alone is a backup. And because of my perspicacity for acting, I can project my voice really well. So if the PA stuffs up and the lights go out, damn, those audiences are still going to be entertained until it gets back up.
You said that you would have liked to have become, if you had another chance, to have become an actor and in theatre. Do you think, though, by what you're doing that anyway?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you are living up to your potential?
Oh, I'd love to have a meaty role in something, a real role, like in a film or just something, because I think I could do it really well,
Have you thought about casting?
I couldn't go through that. I just couldn't go through it, Mainly because of the fact that, if I sat in the casting room, there's 20 other guys trying to go for a role, I knew I would. I know I won't get it. I know I won't get it. You'd have to see me. I've had some extraordinary things happen because people have seen me work at a show. That's where it lies. Chad Morgan called me an idiot, right? That's a badge I wear with pride. For Chad Morgan to call you an idiot, come on. That's a badge. Chad and I are really good mates, and Chad called me an idiot. That's a badge of pride to me. That's huge. That's for Chad Morgan to call me an idiot, you're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot.
It's one of those things that Chad Morgan really is another one that is
original,
so good at being himself.
So good at being himself, and that's what it's really all about. People come off stage, I come off stage, I'm the same person. People don't. They go, John Williamson's not.
What do you see there?
John Williamson's not. Everybody knows.
What happens? What's behind the persona?
Well, on stage he's this iconic true blue guy that does these things like Merv, and off stage he's rather unassuming and shy in a way.
Because it's interesting, a lot of those performers, it's the performance. It's all about the performance. You look at, say, Gary McDonald. We talked about Norman Gunston earlier.
Completely different person off stage, yeah.
Is that where they find their outlet as the performer?
Oh, well, I dare say. I just love doing what I do. I just love doing what I do, whatever I'm doing. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely, but you have worked with one of the icons, John Williamson. You mentioned him. How was that experience?
Well, it was extraordinary. It was my place in country music history at the time. I thought it was.
You say at the time.
Well, that's something that I can't talk. There's certain things that I actually can't talk about under threat of legal action, frankly. I mean, I've said, to give you an example, I said something on Facebook quite innocently one day about something that occurred, and I was just, holy crap. The industry came down on me. ABC EMI, APRA, AMCOS, John Williamson's manager at the time. I got phone calls. Take that off. Delete that. You can't say that. Shit. So you under threat of defamation, you can't tell the truth.
Is social media too important in music these days?
It's too important in everything these days. I hate social media in a way. I loathe it in a way. I'd love to go back to the days that we didn't have it. I think it's ruined the world. I absolutely think it's ruined the world. I mean, you look at the current situation with COVID, everybody's become an expert. But they're getting told crap by other dickheads that believe what it's just, and it's made up bullshit a lot of the time. It's just, oh, no, it's crap. You can tell it's crap. You can see it's crap. It's written like crap. It's crap. I call it the University of YouTube and the College of Google. People get their degrees of idiocy from those two platforms.
You must be glad you're in Queensland. Talking of COVID, you can still go out to Winton and work.
I posted a thing on Facebook. See, here's the thing, and I don't know why this is. I really don't. But other people have been blocked and banned by Facebook for much lesser things than I've said and done. And I really don't know why.
Because you don't hold back in a lot of your posts.
Oh, it's pretty obvious I don't. No. No, I don't. I don't see a need to. I don't care. I don't care.
Is that a good place to be now? That where you are, that you don't care, that you just are you and...
Yeah, it is.
Just...
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's good being me. I love to be me.
Because you turn back the clock to when you were mercilessly picked on, and now it's, as you say, turn the tables, and now you can...
I don't pick on anybody. I don't really pick on anybody.
But you can be you.
I can be you. I tell it how it is, right? And it's not in my opinion, it's how it is. You know the expression about everybody's got the right to an opinion? No, you haven't. Nobody's got the right to an opinion. Nobody's got the right to an opinion. You've got the right to have an argument. Give me your facts. You've got the right to have an argument, but you haven't got a right to an opinion. Opinion is vacuous. Everybody's got an arsehole. Opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one. Opinions mean nothing, but give me your facts. Argue, right? Give me your argument. And I don't mean argument in the sense of, I mean, give me your argument for what you're saying. Give me the facts for what you're saying.
Is there anyone over your 40, 50-year career that you've been intimidated by?
Don't be an arsehole. Look, there's, absolutely. Absolutely there has. There are bullies in the industry.
Not so much.
No, there are bullies in the industry. That's simple. That's a simple fact. There are bullies in the industry, and they'll use it against you at every opportunity. They will try and use it against you. Yeah. To give you an example of one that I can actually mention, when I was doing the cruise ships, and I don't do them anymore simply because things got harder for me through this process. And let me tell you the process. I'd be on stage being a comedy instrumentalist that they'd hire me to do, right? So out of an audience of 700 people, one person will complain, and I will be brought up to the cruise director and have to write out an apology to this one person.
Tough. That is tough.
It's ridiculous, is what it is. It's ridiculous. And one example that really got up my goat, and my days on the cruise ships were numbered because of this. It's a great job if you can get it on the cruise ships. Great job, because you get paid, a couple of $1,000 for being on a cruise ship for 8 days, and you only work one night. You only work one night. The rest of the time, you're on a fucking cruise ship. Right? You're on a fucking cruise ship. You're having a great time with all the other passengers. And you're the only person on the ship that's paid by the ship that can actually do that. The only person. You have access to both highway, the ship's highway in the middle. Down, you can go to the cruise bar after 11 with 1956 prices, and everybody smokes cigarettes. You can do that, right? But you can also go to all the expensive restaurants and bars and at 20% off, 25% off, because you can also do that. No one else can do that on the ship. You're the only person that can do that. So I'm on a ship. I'm out there cruising the islands. Done me. I was on the first night, right? The first night. I've got 7 days of cruising in the South Pacific. Thank you, right? Great job if you can get it. So about the second or third night, I'm up with a mob of young Australians, right? Their fathers and mothers used to come to my gigs. How old am I? 64. Their mother and father used to come to my gigs, and they'd have oh, we used to see you, and we were only the title. So I'm having a great time at the Chinese restaurant on board this ship, right? Having a great time with these, and they're shouting me the meal. These kids are shouting me the meal because I'm, legend to their father, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Having a great time. And the lights go out, right, for whatever reason. And I say, oh, quick, turn the lights back on. I'm Catholic. I'm getting a stiffy. Da-da-da-da, right? Life of the party. They're all pissed themselves laughing. Oh, well, at 6 a.m. the next morning, there's a little piece of paper put under my door. It's, please come to the cruise director's office immediately in receipt of this notice. Go, oh, all right, what's going on? Oh, splash my face, Right, 7 a.m, I'm at the cruise director's. He says, oh, g'day, Paul, how you going, mate? Hi, mate, sit down. Is there a problem? Yeah. Were you at the Chinese restaurant last night? I'm going, yeah. Were you with a group of young Australians? Yeah. Did you notice there was an old couple sitting across from you at the table? Oh, well, there's a lot of people in the restaurant. And the lights went out at one stage, is that right? Yeah. Did you say... Did you say, I'm a Catholic, turn the lights back on, I'm a Catholic, I'm getting a stiffy? And I said, yeah, I said that. I said, okay. This is an off-boarding offence.
Wow.
Right? So they could put me off at the next port of call, right, wherever it was, and I'd have to get back home at my own expense. We were in the middle of the South Pacific. I didn't want this to happen, right? So he said, oh, look, if you write a letter to the purser, the cruise, write a letter to me, the cruise line, and to the ship's captain, and also a letter of apology to these people. I said, what, for this? Are you kidding me? I got really narky. No, this is fucking bullshit, right? So look, if you don't do it, we're gonna have to put you off at the next port of call. It's just the law. It's the way it is, and you'll have to get home. And it was going to be Mystery Island, which means it was a helicopter or a boat, right, across to the mainland of Fiji or one of the islands, to then hopefully get a plane back at my expense, right? And I wouldn't be paid. It was like Nightmareville. So I did all this. I said, what did they... So he showed me what they complained about, right? And he knew exactly what this was about, right? They, on the bedside table of everybody's cabin is a form, a little card that said, what did you like or dislike about the cruise, right? They'd filled out 7 of these in the tiniest writing, these 2 old people. And Paul, the cruise director, I haven't said his last name and I haven't said the name of the cruise line, so... but he'll know if he ever sees this. He showed me what they'd written, and he said to me, yeah, they're simply bucking for another free cruise. That's what this is all about.
Wow.
It's a free cruise. We give them a free cruise for this. That's what this is all about. We've had this often. We get this often. So that, there you go. That's how your quick wit can fuck with you.
Well, let me get back to when I was asking about those that might intimidate you. What I meant was when AC/DC walk into a gig that you're at.
Oh no! Immediately we were all going. You bet you can't play bluegrass, you pricks. Right? There's all that.
What was their reaction?
Oh, they pissed themselves. They were having a good time. In fact, the guitar player, what's his name?
Angus.
Angus, the little Angus got up and played a couple of tunes with us.
Who's the person, because you said like Bob Dylan said to you, you must be Pixie.
You must be Pixie.
Who's the person?
You must be Pixie.
Who's the person that you've most enjoyed working with over your time?
Oh, it would have to be John Williamson. I mean, there's a happiness and heartache at the same time there, unfortunately.
Did you ever think you've done tours of the States, did you ever think to head over there and stay over there?
I honestly can't stand most Americans. They annoy the shit out of me. They really do. I'm being perfectly honest here. Honestly, I really have a problem with their... People say, Americans, they're so humble and nice. They're always keen to greet you and they're so friendly. In fact, you know why? Because they don't know who's got a gun. I'm serious. I believe that it's been... That wholesome camaraderie that we see has been developed from the fact you don't know who's got a gun. Honestly, you don't want to walk into a place like we do in Australia and go, hey, I want bacon and eggs, and I want the eggs soft, and if they don't come soft, I'm not paying you, right? Well, you couldn't say that in America because the bloke will go, whatever. I mean, I was in Springfield, Missouri. I was calling it misery all the time because it was -7 degrees. So, and the Americans were always so polite at correcting me. It's Missouri. It's Missouri. Or it's Missouri. It's Missouri. And I was going, misery. It's bloody misery. That's what it is. It's Springfield misery. I was just, having a lark. So we got a night off in Springfield, Missouri. And I got a night off and I look to see if there's a gay bar in town because I thought, the previous night they'd taken us out to Cowboys 2000, right? Is that not a gay name? Cowboys 2000 is 3 football-size arenas, right? 3 football-size arenas in a enclosed shed. And when they say Cowboys 2000, they literally mean 2,000 smelly leather-clad cowboys under a roof with 3 football rodeo arenas. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was just extraordinary. The smell of testosterone was in the air. But it was just extraordinary. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. So the next night I thought, let's go and see what a gay bar's like. So I looked up and see if there's a gay bar in Springfield, Missouri, and I saw this thing called Martha's Vineyard. I've gone, that's got to be a gay bar. So I've got this taxi. It's the worst, dirtiest, smelliest taxi I've ever travelled in my life, with cigarette butts and bottles on the back floor. And it's freezing cold, middle of winter, into this bar in the centre of the town in Springfield. And yeah, it's a gay bar, except it happens to be a blackfella gay bar. Oops. So they're all African Americans in there, right? So and they're all huge, just enormous. So I'm the only little white fella walks in through the door. Hi. So I didn't know what to do. So I walked up the bar. I said, "Scotch and dry, thanks." And this too big. You're not from around here, are you? I didn't know whether he wanted to hit me or fuck me. I'm not sure. Anyway, fact is, about 5 minutes later, there's a group of them. We're having a great time. It's fantastic. It's fun. It's great. I heard the best version of Rainbow Connection by Kermit from this guy who could sing like an absolute dream. unbelievable. It was like Rainbow Connection. It was just extraordinary, this guy. Anyway, so it was about... What I didn't know about American bars, all American bars, is that they shut at 1 a.m. in the morning, and that's it. There's nothing else open. It's shut at 1 a.m. Well, by 1 a.m. there was a blizzard outside, right? And we're all pissed. Everybody's pissed. We're all getting pushed out of this bar, and there's all these blackfellas getting in their cars, and there's cars going sideways down the street and bashing into other cars, and everybody's laughing and just carrying on like a bunch of buffers. Anyway, it was just fabulous, and it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I'm just in fits of laughter watching this thing. I've never ever seen anything like this. Seriously, cars just bumping and crashing into each other, and about half an hour goes by, and it's... And then the street lights go out. So I'm in the middle of Springfield, Missouri, not knowing where the hell I am, half pissed, thank God, right? Because at least I was warm, not caring so much about the blizzard. And I remember there was this is America for you. So there was no taxis, no phone, but there's nothing. It's completely, everybody's gone. And the bars... I've turned around, the light in the bar's gone blink out. That's it. Everything's dark. So I get my phone out, put the torch on, and I remember that there was a highway. I'd come in off a highway, which is probably a couple of kilometres away, somewhere in that direction, right? So I started going towards it, and eventually I saw the lights of the highway. So I kept going through the streets of this blizzard, literally a bloody blizzard. Got up to the highway, and there was a truck stop that was up here, right? So it's about, I think it's about 1:45 by that time, 45 minutes through this. I'm starting to really seize up, getting really cold. The alcohol's wearing off. 45 minutes. And so I got it about 1:45, and as I get closer to the thing, the sign on the petrol station goes... And there's a light in where the office is, right? And there's a bloke obviously doing the till for the night. So I walk up to the thing, knowing I haven't got a clue. I don't know. There's no phone box. There's no nothing. So I rap on the window, right? And he turns around and looks at me and goes back to counting. I go, oh... He reaches under the thing, pulls out a shotgun and lays it on the counter.
Wow.
Without even looking at me. Right? So I go, oh Christ, what am I going to do, right? So I pull out a $100 bill and I go... He grabs a shotgun and turns around, and I lick the $100 bill and I slap it on the window. That shotgun went down and those doors opened that fucking quick. It was incredible. He drove me home.
Wow.
That's America for you.
But what about the music? Like Keith Urban's made it big over there, as you said.
Well, he played the game.
Sure.
He made the mistake of coming over here and saying, I'd like to thank Jesus Christ, when he stood on stage getting the gold guitar for the instrumental award that I should have got in 2000. But we won't go into that. I played on the friggin' instrumental that he won for. I played the fiddle on the instrumental that he won.
Has he played the game well?
Oh, he's played it incredibly well, hasn't he? $600 million boy. Come on. And he's married to another $600 million. So, I mean, there's a dynasty. They've created a dynasty, those two. Yeah. I think they're very much in love.
Do you wish you'd played the game better?
No, I can't. I can't play that game. I can't be that fake. I don't... No. Yeah. But no. But yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I can't play. I'm just who I am, and take it or leave it.
You've been immortalised in the hands of fame. Is there any else?
And the Wax Museum.
And the Wax Museum.
And the Noses of Fame, which are pulled up by two lesbians who bought the Joe Maguire's hotel and didn't know what it was, and they threw it out to the tip. We all went up there, resurrected it, brought it back down and put it down and said, don't you move that again. Anyway, go on. So.
And the golden guitars, the accolades. What's left for you? Is there something that you
Pension,
like?
bring it on. I am just waiting for my pension, bring it on.
Do you worry about the dexterity in the fingers?
You know, I do have a trigger finger happening after all these years, right? In here, that's really annoying sometimes. I'm halfway through an instrumental and this finger will cock and I'll go, oh shit, come on everybody, clap your hands. Come on, I'll get the finger working by clapping. Come on, I'll stop and pretend I want the audience to clap their hands. Yeah, that worries me. But nothing else does. I'm going to be one of these poor bastards that's in a nursing home at the age of 85, hopefully not, that's in a nursing home with a mind that's totally compos mentis, but the body's completely fucked. That's how I'm going to be.
So what else would you like to achieve?
Well, I'd really like to go to England and Ireland to play, to just do some playing, just to see, you know, I've traced my family heritage back to the 1700s in Ireland, so I'd at least like to be able to visit County Clare and County Tipperary and that, you know, and see the real fiddlers and get a chance to play with them. I played with the Chieftains. I was the only fiddle player that had the guts to get up with the Chieftains in Australia. None of the others all wimped out. I got up and played with them.
Is there anything that you won't do on stage?
Oh, I won't take my clothes off because you don't want to see that naked. That'd ruin the career. No one wants to see that. No, I don't think there's anything I wouldn't do on stage other than that. No, I don't think so.
So COVID is really starting to take effect and things are loosening to some degree.
It never really affected me.
Why not?
It's because I did other things. There was other things I could do. I never really whinged about it. I wasn't on Facebook every day trying to keep my career alive, you know, like some of them are, you know, playing songs in their lounge rooms and my new album's coming out. I wasn't like that.
How have you seen the industry recording change over the years, 40, 50 years? I remember starting with records and now look at how it's all gone digital. Is it an improvement?
Gee, that's a tough one, isn't it? I'm an audiophile, right? So there's nothing that comes close to a really expensive turntable and a really expensive tone arm and a really expensive diamond stylus.
And the crackle.
On a perfectly clean microfibered record through an expensive stereo amplifier into extraordinary speakers from Klipsch or something like that. There's nothing that comes close. God knows why, but you just can't do it with a CD. It just doesn't come close. And I look, there'll be people that'll argue that fact with me, but I'm sorry, I just don't think there's anything that comes close. Those grooves are made from vibration of a needle that's gone into that thing, and you're listening to that original vibration in that room. I just don't think that digital comes near it. It comes close, of course it does.
Do you think we've lost something the way that music is presented these days with the Spotifys and...
Oh, streaming has ruined music. David Bowie said before he died that music will become like water, and it has. It's definitely, yep. People think that they have the right to turn on a tap and get a glass of water without realising how much it actually costs to get that glass of water to them. Somebody did a university study many years ago. It was worth about $124 a glass.
What about music then?
Yeah, it's the same. Young people don't care about where it comes from or how it's made, or they don't give a damn. They just want it made. It's flotsam and jetsam now. It's just, and you've got idiots like Kanye and,
What advice would you give to emerging artists then that are trying to make it these days?
Oh, still be yourself. That's really all you can do. I mean, that's evidence. That's evidential. You look at any artist who's really big, they're pretty much themselves. unfortunately, Kanye's like he is, but he's pretty much Kanye. He's like an idiot all the time, so that's fine. That girl who had that hit, the Byron Bay busker. The busker girl from Byron Bay that had that monkey song or whatever it was. That'll be it for her. But that's okay. Make a few $1 million and sit on your ass for the rest of your life. That's what it's like these days. That's certainly changed that sort of thing. But streaming is a horrible mess. It's a horrible mess. There's companies that actually sell views. You can apply to a company, right? And you can spend a certain amount of money with them, and they'll give you a certain amount of actual streams. They'll give their fans to you for a certain amount of money. What is that? What is that? What is that? That's not music.
It's hollow, building a perception.
It's all perception. It's nothing else.
Well, you've spent a 40, 50-year career of being yourself, and let's hope it just continues.
Bring on the pension, mate. Bring it on. Hurry up. Haven't got all... Come on. Only got a few years left. Bring the pension on. 64. By the time I get to 67, right, which is my pension age, I reckon they'll put it up another 2 years. Pricks.
Pixie Jenkins, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks for joining us over the bonnet.
Mark Piepers, Merry Mark Media Television Productions. Thank you, Mark Piepers. Really appreciate it. You've allowed me to talk about myself for the last couple of hours. Fantastic. What more could I ask for?